It was a Saturday night, and all I wanted to do was watch TV in my family's cabin. It was very small and isolated, with no houses nearby. My parents had gone out on a date and wouldn't be back until after midnight. Even though the roads were covered in snow, I had ordered a pizza about an hour ago. When I realized it was taking a long time, I figured it was because of the icy roads. I decided to distract myself and chose a horror movie to watch on the couch. About 5 minutes later, I was startled when the doorbell suddenly rang. I thought it was the pizza delivery guy, so I went to the door, but when I opened it, I was surprised. There stood a dirty and unkempt man who looked to be about 40 years old, like someone who had been living on the streets for a long time. His hair was long and greasy, and he was in desperate need of a shave. Even so, he was holding a pizza box and wearing a Domino's pizza uniform, although it was all messy and tight, as if he had put on in a hurry. The name tag said Michael Smith, but it was hanging in a weird way. He smiled, but that smile made me uncomfortable. "Hi, I'm Ted. Did you order a large cheese pizza?" he said, still with that weird smile. I tried to get the money out of my pocket, but it wasn't there. I remembered I left it in the kitchen. I quickly grabbed my wallet, and in the meantime, the TV, which was on the news, showed a breaking news story. Domino's delivery man found unconscious, clothes stolen. My heart raced. The man outside said his name was Ted, but his name tag said Michael Smith. His clothes didn't look right on him. I ran to the door, but it was open and the pizza box was on the floor. Something was very wrong. I looked for my cell phone, but it was on the nightstand. I walked upstairs with my heart in my mouth, trying to make as little noise as possible. When I got to my room, everything was in its place, and my cell phone was right there. I picked up my cell phone and called 911. As soon as the operator answered, I heard a strange noise. The door to my closet, which I always left closed, was ajar. 2 eyes were staring at me from inside, and a huge smile appeared. It was the man. I screamed and ran as fast as I could. He was chasing me, always with that scary smile. I got to the bathroom downstairs and locked the door, but he started banging on it, laughing in a childish way, as if he were playing. I knew I didn't have much time. I looked around and saw a small window. With great effort, I managed to get out through it and threw myself into the snow. Outside, the storm was raging, and I could barely move, but I knew he was close. The sound of the door breaking gave me the signal that he had already noticed I was outside. When I looked to the side of the cabin, there he was, smiling again, walking towards me. But at that moment, I heard sirens. The police arrived just in time. The man looked at me, smiled even more, and ran into the forest. I ran to the police, crying with relief. I told them what had happened, and other police officers went to look for the man in the forest, but it was already dark. For several nights, I couldn't sleep, always remembering that man's smile. But since then, there have been no more strange knocks on the door. When I was almost out of high school, I got a job delivering food. It was pretty cool, and I made a little extra money from tips. One Friday night, I had to deliver an order to a house on the other side of town. It took me about 10 minutes to drive there. When I got to the front door, I saw a note pinned to it that told me to go to the back door. I thought it was a little odd, but I went. The back door was next to a small backyard with a patio. When I got there, there was another note that said, "Please bring the food inside." It made me uncomfortable, but I decided to go in anyway. I opened the door and saw a nearly empty kitchen with music playing from a Bluetooth speaker on the table near the entrance. I went to put the pizza down and suddenly saw another note that said, "Leave the pizza in the basement and I'll give you a tip." I looked toward the back of the kitchen and saw an open door with stairs leading down to a very dark basement. At that moment, I decided, no tip. There was no way I was going down those stairs. I left the pizza on the table and was ready to leave when the music suddenly stopped. A deep, creepy voice came out of the speaker. "Why don't you come down?" Without thinking twice, I ran to the door, got out of there as fast as I could, and as I ran away, I heard the sinister laugh of that voice. I got to the car, sped up, and went straight to the restaurant. For weeks I thought about it, and when I finally forgot about it, I received another delivery to the same house. I didn't want to go back there at all, but it was my job, and I didn't want to explain this to my boss. Scared, I kept driving. When I got there, I saw another note on the door. I stayed in the car for a while, trying to convince myself to leave. I took a deep breath and went to the front door. The new note said, "Enter through the front door this time, winky face," with a smiling face and winking. At that moment, I left the pizza on the door, knocked twice, and ran out. Nothing happened, thank God. To this day, I don't know what that person wanted, but honestly, I'd rather never find out. Last month, when I turned 16, my family and I went on a trip to Toronto. I took my friends Ashley and Sarah, and we had a great time. We stayed in a hotel, went swimming, and visited the mall, and it was amazing. The night we got back from the mall, we were in our room relaxing. It was around 11 p.m., and I was bored. So I went to the door that separated our room from my parents' and brother's room and asked my mom if we could go for a walk around Kensington Market because we had nothing to do. She let me. As we were leaving, my little brother asked if he could come with us because he was bored too. I said okay. My parents decided to go too because they had to take care of my brother. As we walked, my parents and my brother were a little ahead, and my friends and I were laughing and talking behind. Suddenly, I started to get hungry and told my parents that we wanted to eat something. We kept walking until we found a large building full of restaurants and coffee shops. It had 2 floors and an escalator in the middle, leading to the second floor. My parents went to McDonald's, quite far from us, and Sarah found a table for us because she wasn't very hungry. Ashley and I went to the ice cream shop. While we were waiting in line, I noticed 3 guys sitting at a table near the ice cream shop, looking at us and whispering. 2 of them came to the ice cream line, right behind us. One of them, a tall man in somewhat old-fashioned clothes, came over and started talking to Ashley. He looked kind of creepy. He asked her what kind of ice cream she recommended, while he was fiddling with a strange little bottle. Ashley is very friendly, so she answered without thinking too much. The other guy came over to talk to me. He was wearing a white coat and a hat. He said to me, "You look really different. What ethnicity are you?" I felt uncomfortable, but I just laughed and thanked him. Then he asked for my number. I said no, but he kept insisting, saying he just wanted a text. At this point, the third guy, who was sitting down, stood up. I was nervous and ready to leave, but the first guy came back and said, "I got your friend's Snapchat, can I get yours too?" I said no, and he laughed. Then he asked, "Are you two here alone?" My mind went blank, and I froze. Luckily, Ashley answered for me, saying that our parents were at McDonald's and that our other friend, Sarah, was at a nearby table. The guys looked at Sarah and waved at her. Sarah saw them and came over to us. But before she could speak, my parents showed up. They said they were going back to the hotel and that we could walk later. Sarah said, "Okay," and my parents and brother went down the escalator. Then Sarah came over to us and asked if everything was okay. We said yes, but I wanted to get out of there quickly because I was feeling really uncomfortable. As we started down the escalator, we noticed that the 2 guys from the ice cream shop were following us. It was late, the building was almost empty, and there were only 2 people between us and them on the escalator. When we got to the bottom, I saw my parents and my brother waiting in line at Starbucks near the exit. We ran up to them and told them what had happened. As soon as we spoke, the guys realized our parents were there. They turned around and went back up the escalator. My mom suggested that we go back to the hotel. When we got out, I saw the same guy from before with the briefcase standing near the exit, staring at us. That scared me because I thought he had already left. When we passed him, I looked back to see if he was following us. I saw that he walked over to a black car with very dark windows. The driver rolled down the window, and the guy whispered something to him before the car drove away. I wondered what could have happened if my parents hadn't been there. We got back to the hotel, and Ashley started crying because it hit her what had just happened. Sarah and I tried to calm her down. Ashley said she had given the guy her Snapchat because she was afraid to say no. That's when she remembered that she had her location on the app. She turned it off and blocked the guy, but she saw that he was very close to us, maybe even in the hotel. Nothing else happened that night, but who knows what could have happened if we had been alone. So if you're listening to this, always be vigilant and take care of yourself. This story happened a few months ago while I was delivering for DoorDash. It was a Thursday night, and I was working until 3 a.m. It was almost the end of my shift when, around 1:30 a.m., I received an order from McDonald's. The order was just a medium drink, which I thought was a bit odd. Who want just a drink delivered? But I didn't think much of it. I went to McDonald's, got the drink, and started driving to the address. The place wasn't far, maybe 5 or 10 minutes away. But as I got closer, I noticed that the neighborhood didn't seem very safe. The houses were very old and poorly maintained, some almost falling apart. The yards had tall grass, as if no one took care of them. When I turned onto a dead-end street, I became even more suspicious. At the end of the street, I finally arrived at the address. The house was hard to see, dark and surrounded by lots of trees. There were no streetlights or lights on. I parked the car and drove slowly out. I walked along the narrow sidewalk, full of pine needles and twigs, as if no one had been there for a long time. After walking about 3 meters, I heard the sound of branches moving in a tree near me. I immediately dropped my drink on the ground and ran back to the car. I felt something moving behind me, but I didn't dare look. I just kept running until I reached my car and got in. As soon as I started the engine, I saw lights come on in the middle of the road, right in front of my windshield. 3 men were there, standing there, staring at me from about 10 meters away. They weren't chasing me anymore. They were just watching me. Then, suddenly, one of them picked up the drink I had left on the ground and threw it at my car. It landed on the ground, very close, and that's when I backed up and got out of there as fast as I could. I hope I never have to go back to that neighborhood to make deliveries again.